Hey guys, Zach here. I'm here in my new room. Just moved back to Chico. Oh, I need a tripod. And I've got some casts that I want to talk about today. So I've got some lithic casts that I've collected over the years, and this is by far not an extensive group. I went over and saw John Kiernan, and he's got a massive, massive cast collection. But this is just going to be my interpretation of some of the casts that I own, most of which are from Lithic Casting Lab, Pete Bostrom, and yeah, we're gonna take a look at them, and I'll set my phone up here on the tripod and talk about them. Okay, these are both from the Fen cache, which was a Clovis cache recovered somewhere in the proximity of the intersection of Idaho, southeast Idaho, Colorado, and Utah, around that area. We don't know for sure because it wasn't in situ and it wasn't like an archaeological dig. So unfortunately, we don't have any information on that. But regardless of the provenance or site, we can learn a lot from these pieces and a little bit about how Clovis, cache manufacturing and napping was done. And so the first one we'll look at is this one, which is made from smoky quartz crystal. And the Fen cache had materials from all over the Intermountain region. Lots of oil chert from Wyoming, the Green River Formation, southwestern Wyoming. Quartz crystal, this could have been sourced from anywhere in the mountains of maybe Colorado, not exactly sure where. And then of course this guy, which is red phosphoria jasper. We'll talk about that one later, but this one we can see that it's pretty much all percussion, and the fluting, let me get a little closer here, probably a shaft punch. A lot of that's going to be a recurring theme in this video. Horizontal punching, probably this could be achieved with vertical punching, but as this gets thinner, it's a lot harder to do. And so yeah, this one's smoky quartz crystal. I've heard some people suggest that there were multiple nappers that made the Fen cache, which wouldn't be completely surprising to me. It could be possible that, in my opinion, I think a lot of Clovis caches were offerings. We see with the Anzac site, with the Anzac child, that there were Clovis points that were left as almost like a burial offering. It could be possible that maybe the Fen cache was associated with the burial and just the body or bones were never found, or maybe it was in acidic soil and it disintegrated. And these are all that were found. So yeah, looking at this point, we can see that there's probably, it is quartz crystal, so the flaking can be more rippled as it goes across those crystal layers. But to me, it looks like this was probably supported on some leather. You see the rippling of that really thin flake as it comes across the surface. And then I'm looking at some of the other flakes here. We can also see that this was fluted earlier and then refluted on this side. And we can see the tool that they used was probably pretty sharp. This was the last flake that was taken on this side, most likely. There was two flutes, one over here, and another over here. And we can see these flakes as they come through that area. Look at those deep ripple. The deep rippling is probably from support, and it's just a really cool piece. Pretty much no pressure flaking, absolutely no pressure flaking on this thing. It's a cool point. Of course, we all know this one. This is the classic parallel oblique percussion piece, made from red phosphoria jasper, or a phosphoria chert, and it's just amazing. So the workmanship on this thing, it's more of a Western, what we call Western styled Clovis, minimal fluting, still a thin base, but it's not exhibited. It's not similar to some of the ones that we see from other sites, like the Vale site, where they're deep fluted from probably steeper platforms and a median ridge. These are more flat. I won't talk too much about the diagnostics of different kinds of Clovises, but let's talk about this piece a little bit. The flaking is phenomenal, and we can see that there's alternating flaking on this side. most likely a horizontal punch. I mean, to do this with direct percussion, you'd have to be really, really talented, and probably almost impossible to do with, you know, antler tools or horn or even ivory, anything, bone, whatever they were using. We can see the deep rippling on this one as well, indicative most likely of leather support. And the length that these flakes go across the surface, they're definitely isolated. You can see more deep rippling on the sides where the flakes terminate, and this one on the middle, definitely indicative of support in the middle. So probably on the leg, on leather. This flake would have come up and then hit support and kept going, and it went all the way, you can see, back to the back ridge. They did leave some thickness here. This is an old previous flake scar. They probably would have been able to get another flake to go this way. And I say that from this edge just because this side is a little higher. And we see that on this side where all the flakes are not coming from the same edge. These two are, but this one comes up different direction. We have another here. These three are coming from the same edge. Actually, these four are coming from the same edge, except for this one here. And that could be true as of this face too. You got three in sequence, and maybe they could have got another flake this way. That's an amazing, amazing piece. And again, probably no pressure flaking on this edge. Beginner nappers may or you know, people that are into artifacts may say that these flakes are, little flakes like these are pressure. They're probably just percussion. They could be done with pressure, but typically pressure flaking or flakes like this can be achieved with a punch, cleaning up little you know, platform remnants or deltas. So yeah, that's this one. Beautiful piece. Now, while we're on the topic of Clovis, I want to talk about this piece here from the Hogye cache in Central Texas. This is a piece that was made from either high quality Edwards chert or maybe Georgetown flint. Of course, Georgetown is synonymous with the Edwards Plateau. It's just a high quality flint from the eastern edge of the plateau, and it occurs in the chalk formations there, in lens shapes mostly. And a lot of the stuff that was found in the Hogye cache was made from that material. And it's a perfect glassy chert, strong and easy to flake, and would have been great for Clovis pieces. And the Paleo Indians absolutely prized that material and traded it extensively, definitely into all kinds of areas. Anyway, this piece right here was actually gifted to me by John Kiernan. He's got a lot of casts, and he was very nice to give this piece to me because, as far as I'm concerned, not many people have this cast. And so I'm very thankful for that. John's always a great friend and very, very generous. But the coolest part about this Clovis is that, or this preform, I would say, it's not a finished piece, is that we see flaking that is parallel and a cross face flaking, and it's almost all coming from the same edge. And then we flip it over and we can see the same pattern on this side, with the exception of this little flake here going down in here. But we can talk about this face first, and we can see on the top here that this flake went all the way over, probably hit support and lipped the edge there, and that could have been intentional. We can also see on the initiation that it's you know, probably from a punch, just because we can see that percussion's really noticeable and strong there. Also, looking over here, we can see that this was flaked from tip to base off of this side here. This flake was taken, and this smaller flake was taken here. We can see there's a little remnant of the platform that they had right there. This isn't focusing too well, but I'll just keep it at this distance. And then another smaller percussion flake here. And then over here, larger one. And that flake actually, you know what, I was gonna say that flake crushed, but now I'm looking at it and it was probably just them cleaning up the rest of that, and it kind of just crushed out a little bit and hinged. Cleaning out the rest of the delta, I mean. we've got a little spacer flake here, what appears to be a spacing flake, maybe to get rid of some of the thickness to make sure that this flake doesn't run into the previous scar. And then right here, this is a really nice flake, and we can see this flake dove down, and this is very noticeable on this scar here. Definitely some support going on. And if you guys don't know what support is, there's different ways to support a biface when you're striking it. You can hold it really tightly, you can add mass to it, or you can also provide some leather support on the face, which is probably what happened here. It's probably a mix of the two, holding it tightly and also maybe leather support. We can see that this flake here dives down into this area here, and that's something that would probably only happen with hard support or support on a biface edge. We've got a little blender flake in here cleaning up some of those areas. Maybe this dove down a little further, maybe it hinged and they cleaned it up from this side. There's definitely some thickness in here. We can see remnant, this shine right here. That scar is from an older percussion flake. And the flute here, nice long flute, and it's a good flake there. This was the, this appears to be the second side faced flute, but it's kind of hard to tell because there is this little cleaning up flake here on this other flute on this side. But if I had to guess, I would say that this was the second flute detachment. Hard to say though on this one. Yeah, I would probably say that that's the second one, but maybe not. Sometimes in the in fluting, one side or one platform is a little closer to the center line than the other, and so that's why this flute kind of came up and went up onto the top, left more thickness here because it was from almost below center line and went up. This one was pretty much closer to center line, so it was more of an inward flute. And we can see that this is not, it's not a complete symmetrical taper in the fluting areas. So we talked about this side, or sorry, we talked about this side, and we can flip it over. This kind of edge-to-edge flaking is really easily achieved if you are, you know, leaving a platform, a continuous platform from the previous face. And so on this one, I'm gonna look at it real quick. This one looks to be a little bit more random flaking, although we can see that this side was, this flake was taken, this flake was taken. So maybe tip down, or actually, yeah, tip down, because we can see here, 1, 2, 3, this scar is running into this scar here. Also, look at this scar, the way that this one dives down in there. And this one was also taken. Yeah, so it's actually base to tip on, or tip to base on this one as well. And then we have a little cleaning flake from this opposite side. Yeah, lots of small margin work, percussion. And this thing is ground. Maybe it was a knife, maybe it was you know, still a preform that they're working down. And a lot of the time they were tools throughout the life cycle up until finishing the Clovis point, and then even after. And as far as I'm concerned, the Hogye cache had a lot of finished Clovis, as well as quite a few different pieces that were preforms, actually many different preforms that exhibit flaking just like this. Edge to edge, overshot flaking, controlled percussion. So those are Clovis. Those are the Clovis casts that I have. On the topic of Paleo, this is a Hasket projectile point, which is associated with the Western stem Paleo tradition, which is contemporaneous or may even predate some Clovis sites. Very hot topic in archaeology. But these are really, really nice points. And this one shows percussion flaking. It's made from obsidian. It was recovered in, or found in Utah. And these were being used to at least process mammoth, or maybe mastodon, probably mammoth. They did find proboscidean blood proteins on some of these. So definitely associated with mammoths or mastodons or Columbian mammoths. So yeah, really cool piece. And we can see that this was probably punched in with either a vertical punch or could also be done with a horizontal punch at a high angle. The thing with these is that they're probably hafted into a slot, maybe something like a cancellous bone where it's been carved out and then wedged in there, because a lot of the time they're ground all the way up. And to carve a foreshaft out of wood that deep would have been a lot of work. And also these were used in areas where there may not have been many woods or trees to use. So it's very possible that they were hafting these into a antler or bone foreshaft. And what's cool about a lot of the haskets that I've seen is there's a nice body on them. They're very strong, but the tip has been sharpened by usually one flake that goes across and all the way across and removes the opposite edge and makes a very sharp tip. And I've done that on some of my haskets, and I usually do it with a little horizontal punch, or sorry, a little vertical punch. And this is from pressure flaking earlier today with an antler tool. But that's pretty cool to see. And yeah, so no pressure flaking on this other than maybe just some of the chipping around here, which is probably just scrunching around with the hammerstone that they were grinding. Really cool piece. And this guy right here, which is a knife, I'm assuming, was given to me by John. This is a cast, and this was also found on a dig in association with Western stem paleo and hasket points. So this is like a hasket knife, and it's ground this whole area, and it almost kind of looks like something you'd find with Cody stuff, but it's not. And this shows this is pressure flake, so this is completely randomly pressure flaked. It's made out of some sort of shirt, and I believe this is from Nevada. It's either Nevada or Utah. Oh, that's a cool piece. Really, really cool. So those are Western stem artifacts. Okay, these, I'm gonna try and talk a little faster because I'm finding that I'm running out of storage and I talk a lot. So these are points that are associated with the Cody complex of the High Plains Paleo-Indian traditions. So this is a first viewpoint which was found in Texas. It's probably made out of a white Edwards Plateau variety chert. As you get into West Texas, it sometimes becomes more white or pale like this. And let's take a look at the diamond cross section on this. You can see it is very, very well balanced. And the way they achieve that is by multiple passes of pressure flakes that only go to the very center at the same angle. You'll also notice that this has been flaked tip to base on this edge, and then on the same edge on the back side, it's flaked base to tip. And that is true for this edge as well. We also see that there's a little bit of percussion. There's a percussion scar here, and then there's also another percussion scar right here. You see that? Pretty cool. And so, yeah, multiple passes. I think the way that they were doing these is you would set a, so what they would do, I think, is set a neutral edge, and then they would have a very sharp antler or horn pressure flaker, and they are pushing a flake off, and they spaced them on one side and then flipped it and then took the rest, or they did it back and forth. And the way that I think they were doing that, if you look closely on the edge, you can see that there's these little, this edge work. Not only is that edge work, but that's also up picking from the pressure flaker to create the platform to remove a piece. So let's take a flake scar, for example. In this case, let's look at this one. See this flake scar right? It's not focusing. I'm gonna turn down the color a little bit. Oh, that's a lot better. See the flake scar right here? Let's flip it over, and we can see on that edge right there, where that flake was removed, you can see the remnant, or it's actually this one. You can see the remnant of the up picking, meaning that they were creating a small platform with the same pressure flaker going, and that's what leaves this little indentations, these small edge work groups. But I wouldn't even call it edge work because that's not probably not the intention of doing that. It's just to create the platform to remove these, and almost as a byproduct creates edge work. These are very well made, and this one, doesn't show as much edge work like that, but you can still see them here. Do you see those little flake scars there? This one has an impact fracture. This one's super cool. Really nice diamond cross section. Yeah, these are, and this one, the base is pressure flaked to a square. See the pressure flaking there. This one, the base is actually just ground and it becomes square, or maybe very fine pressure flaking, but I would say it's probably just from abrading and grinding the base. These both exhibit base grinding, as do many early Paleo styles. So sometimes casts break, but I will tell you it is many, many more times better to break the cast than the original. This broke, and this is my fault. But this is an andise artifact from Texas, and this is an amazing piece, and these were deeply notched early archaic knife forms and projectile points. And they were deeply notched and probably done on an anvil supporting, meaning like they have either a hard piece of wood or stone, flat piece of stone or wood underneath their leather, which is usually what I do if I'm doing something deeper notched, for two reasons. Not only to make sure that the punch doesn't go too far and break off of the ear like that, but also to ensure that there is a strong support to keep the biface from moving so you can direct more force into the punch. This one, you can see random flaking, would have been a hafted knife up to there. And this one's probably been resharpened quite a bit. See there's some pressure flaking on the edge here. But even before pressure, they got that thing really thin. So that's a cool artifact, and I like having this cast. The original is made from Georgetown flint, which is great material. This is a massive cache variety Thieves. That's what Pete calls them. And it's just a massive, massive Thieves blade. And this one is super, super cool. It's got diagonal percussion flaking, most definitely done with some sort of indirect punch, probably a horizontal punch. And we can see that this is flaked just very, very nicely. And the flakes are very close together. There were some flaws in the stone that they worked around. Also, the thing with this one is that it's really twisted. I have a cat, by the way. And do you see that? It's pretty cool. That's probably done intentionally, of course. Also, what's amazing about this piece, as large as it already is, it shows signs of resharpening. Probably not a whole lot, but it's still been resharpened, meaning that it was hafted at some point and probably was being used. And we can see that by the pressure flaking on the edge here, along this edge, and then the classic early archaic beveling and resharpening method. And this edge was flaked down this way, and this edge was flaked down this way. And you can see that here. You see how sharp that bevel leaves? And we'll talk a little bit about the percussion used to make this piece. Those flakes are definitely supported, and you can see how they're, just rippling and diving and going really far. And this one right here is just diving down into a low spot. And this one's diving down into a low spot. The flakes are doing all kinds of weird stuff. They're going further than they should because of support. And then in the basal notching, this is a classic Thieves base, and they were notched, I learned this from Marty, they were notched with, not always, but typically with dual flaking in the notch, so you have two cones instead of one. an andise like this would have been one cone, and you can see that. And I forgot to mention on these andise, or at least on this one, on many of them, they're alternating the punch notching. You can see this is the most recent flake out, but on this side, that's the most recent flake out. You see that? And that's the ladder. The one on the left is the ladder, one on the right is newer, so kind of cool. And might be the same on this one too, I haven't looked yet, but look at the crunching and the crazy amount of you know, strength they're putting into the punch there. Probably an antler punch. Really, really strong. And this is a thick area. They're getting those notches in there. You can see the cracking right there. That was punch notched in there. Super cool. Ground base. And this is an amazing early archaic blade. I'm pretty sure that these must have had some sort of ritualistic or ceremonial, and I hate to say that because it's so overused, but to make something this large and use it when many of the other Thieves are not nearly well made as this, or as large as this, probably would have had a special, it would have been special. Let's just say that. Yeah, it's a really cool piece. And I think this is from Illinois, I want to say. This is the last cast I have, and this is a really cool piece. I just liked it a lot. I love that it's Hixton quartzite from Wisconsin. I also like that it's a dovetail. Most dovetails you'll see are made from Burlington chert. I mean, there's all kinds of cherts that they were made from, but most commonly Burlington chert, hornstone, Fort Payne, because those are some of the largest materials that occur in abundance in the areas that these were made. Hixton quartzite, however, this is the only Hixton quartzite dovetail I have seen, and I just thought it was so cool. And classic little dovetail base. I think these notches were actually pressure flaked in. A lot of dovetail and early archaic notches were done with a punch. Not to say that these couldn't have been done with a punch, but they're pretty fine. Some of the I actually just bought some real dovetail points, which I'll probably talk about in a different video, but some of the dovetail notches are really, really narrow and finely done, and I think some of them were done with pressure, some of them were done with punches. Maybe just depending on the thickness, I don't know. But it does have a little bit of pressure flaking, resharpening. It's harder to see the flaking on quartzite like this, especially when it's a cast. But you can see there is some pressure flaking on this side here, and it is beveled. And on this side, not much, but it's really cool. That's a great piece. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. And I think I forgot to show you this. I did want to show you this on the Clovis cast. We can see here, this side was flaked this way. See the remnant thickness here along this edge where the flakes pitter out? I'm gonna flip it over. This side was flaked this way. See the remnant thickness over on this side? It's pretty cool to see. Very nice. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm gonna check out.